Caution. I am not a trained engineer, I'm not a professional. None of the techniques I apply here may necessarily be correct, and I may even say or do plain wrong things in this video. And I'm making these videos to let you take part in my learning experience and maybe help people who are facing similar issues with the devices as I have. Enjoy the show! Right guys, so what I have here today is, well, really something pretty special. JVC SVHS recorder, HRS 5000 EEG, meaning it's for the German market. Taking a look at this panel, pretty full featured. As it is with JVC, they localized everything and translated everything on these controls. They used to do that even with the VFDs, like they would spin separate VFD designs with the German abbreviations and stuff. This one we definitely have to take apart before we test it because there's no power plug on this thing. But I seem to recall that I have a plug in here. Yeah, there we go. That should do just fine. Man, I really wish I had a tripod or something so I could do work on this without having to hold the camera. By the way, it's excruciatingly hot in here. So excuse me if I'm a little bit short of breath, but even talking makes me sweat. And then I have two PCs and the lights on. When push comes to shove, the soldering equipment will be on as well, and the CRT when I start testing this. So alongside the user's guide, I happen to have the service manual in paper form, which is very helpful because it is actually a pretty well written service manual with a lot of disassembly and assembly procedures as well as adjustment procedures described. So basically a mini tutorial on how to service. So if you want to learn a bit, I do recommend to read some of the service manual. As is typical for an early SVHS unit, this thing is just filled with tons and tons of stuff, and it's actually really impressive construction of this. The motor has a date code of August 1988, which makes this a pretty early SVHS unit, and as such it should be a really fun project. Can't wait. This belt here seems to be in very good shape, and unfortunately this is not a gear-based idler system, so it has a rubber idler tire, but other than that it seems to be in quite nice condition. So what we have to do now is we have to get this power supply out, and as far as I'm concerned, that means unscrewing the metal base here on that screw over there and over here, and there's another one over there. I can't quite get into focus on it though. And now, before you take it out, always make sure you know what plugs in where. Now since this is all zip tied together, it's pretty hard to mess up the alignment, but like take a picture, or in my case a video, just in case. Got the power supply out now, and the cable is soldered onto these pegs. I'm gonna have to undo those, and then I'll have to find a way to undo this clamp. I'm gonna desolder these two wires, solder my new wire in place. I'm gonna then connect the power supply without the rest of the machine hooked up, because I just want to see if the voltages are okay. Visual inspection yields that while the power supply has a lot of hours on it, judging by the discoloration of this PCB, there's nothing like fried or anything. Now, just for good measure, the capacitors that are close to heat sinks, I will replace them, because heat never does capacitors any good. Also this one, like, look how close that is to that big heat sink. Right, so here's the new wire. I stripped off the insulation here, push it in plenty, and then I will put this clamp on and push it in. Alright, I got the plug installed. Right, I've plugged it in as usual. I don't want anything blowing up in my face. That sounded like a cap charging up this whistling noise. So let's take off the service manual and measure a bunch of stuff on here. See where the voltages are, everything. Got a gut feeling that the power supply is probably gonna be okay. I've yet to have a JVC machine with failed power supply. Turn to the nice paper service manual. I adore these things, these are fantastic. Regureta. Okay, got myself a ground here. One by one. Pin 1. It should measure minus 36.4. It's not loaded, so minus 43 is probably okay. It does. 63 volts. It's slightly high, but remember, A, this is not loaded, and B, this machine is rated for 220 and not 240 volts, with no possibility to set it to 240. So the voltages are going to be a bit higher. The regulators which come after that on the secondary side, they're going to take the hit for that. And that results in a bit more heat. I think we can live with that. The problem is that if this approaches 63 volts and the cap is rated at 63 volts, then we definitely need to replace these capacitors with capacitors that have a bit more, that have a bit higher rating. I'm thinking 100 volt capacitors. So after measuring all these voltages, they're all there in some shape or form. Most of them quite high, but as I said, higher mains voltage and unloaded switch mode power supply readings are unreliable anyway. So I think I'm just gonna take the risk and plug it in now, and we'll see what happens. Alright, moment of truth is here. Something here stuck. Display's not operating. Very interesting array of problems. Interesting, it looks like we have some more work to do. This is a cold solder joint. I have to fix that. Well, time to try again. That's a very vibrant looking display, you know, that is fantastic. However, I'm still getting this spinning action over there, which I don't quite like or understand why it's happening. I need to look at the mode switch and need to look at the service manual. Loading gears, plate assembly, mode switch, there we go. So we need to go on the bottom of the unit. Well, something interesting just happened here. I was tapping the mode switch here with my screwdriver and also the motor, and while it was trying to spin, and eventually it stopped and the unit turned on. So I guess it was the mode switch after all. So that's pretty cool. Alright, got everything ready, and I'll try and put in a tape now. Like it's loading. Hey presto! Would you look at that? That looks like a proper picture to me. Is it tracking hi-fi? It is tracking hi-fi. Nice! Finally some success tonight, huh? So there's a picture in VHS, yeah, but this is an SVHS machine. So we go to our little cupboard here. Color bars, PAL SVHS. Now obviously this is not as good as the real calibration tape. It's good enough for this though. Let's see. Haha! Well, 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 what do we have here? Fantastic! And just a fast forward. All good. Eyes are in pretty nice condition, I must say. Rewind. Now, I actually got a little bit confused because it has separate buttons for picture surge and fast forward and rewind. So that was kind of confusing because these buttons don't do anything. Cleaning the video head. Basically it's the simplest thing in the world. You take some printer paper, you take some 99% isopropyl alcohol, put that on the paper, hold it against the head drum, and spin the head drum counterclockwise. Simplest thing in the world. You should feel under your thumb the video heads as little bumps when they go by your finger. And then you see something came off. Repeat that procedure until no more dirt manifests itself on the paper. So you might need to do this a few times. And for the other heads, Q-tip in that same isopropyl alcohol, rub it against the head in a horizontal motion. And of course the same applies to the linear audio / control head. You may also want to clean some of the other things in the tape path at your leisure, such as the tape guides and these rollers and the capstan shaft. Now while the mechanisms are all very much intact, a lot of this grease has a very solid, hardened up texture to it, which might become a problem in the future. So what I will do with the Q-tips and the alcohol, I will wipe away the old grease and re-grease some of the essential parts of this mechanics. So what I'll do now is I will align the tape path here. So this section here of the service manual explains what we're trying to do pretty well. What it wants us to do is connect the oscilloscope to the FM out test point of the video playback circuit. Well, what they don't tell you is where those test points are. So what I found was that on that pin 1 on CN7 here, that is the head switching signal. That's the purple trace on this here oscilloscope. And the yellow trace is the playback FM, which is on pin 3 of CN8 over here. As you can see, that is 98.7% perfect. Like, the only thing I could do is tweak the exit side a little bit, but that is actually really, really fantastic. I'm very surprised to see this result on a machine of this age. But nevertheless, we are perfectionists, so we will tweak the exit side with this here screwdriver. This is a specialized screwdriver. These are impossible to find on eBay these days. It's a screwdriver with a hole in the middle, and since these are impossible to come by, I just made my own. I took a flathead screwdriver and dremeled a hole in the middle so I can adjust these guides. And as you may notice, here's the entry side guide post, and here's the exit side guide post. And there's a pin in the middle, and that's exactly what the hole in the middle of the screwdriver aligns with. So using this thing like this, you can actually turn the guides. So we'd like to adjust the exit guide here a little bit. Here I'm tweaking it in this direction. Bringing it in the other direction. Like so. That's the flattest signal I've ever seen come out of an RF test point. That is amazing. The one thing that we do have to touch up on is the slow tracking. Although here it's kind of okay. Occasionally the bottom of the picture is kind of noisy, so we can fix that because there's actually a pretty well described adjustment portion for this. SP slow tracking preset R55 SP slow. Set the tracking on the front to the preset position, and this happens by pressing plus and minus at the same time. Then put the machine in slow playback mode. Adjust R55, and R55 is on the servo PCB. You see, R55 SP slow preset right here, and it's even marked. You can see it. SP slow. So watch what happens when I do this. So that's way worse. Maybe we can just tweak it slightly. Very delicate adjustment here. There we go. No, I'm not touching it anymore. Nice. Pretty good. I'm gonna do this adjustment for LP as well, but that would be kind of boring to show because it's basically the same procedure. And there's SP double speed mode. It's fantastically noise free. What I have right here is a commercial VHS calibration tape. I'll run this through and I will adjust the head switching signal. This is also called a PG shifter adjustment. It is the adjustment of the head switching point, which means the point in between the fields when the machine switches between the signal from the tape head that is exiting the tape path through the rotation towards the right to the one entering the tape path on the left side. Possible side effects, if this is not adjusted properly, include additional noise at the bottom of the picture and clicking noises in hi-fi audio, or the failure to recognize and play hi-fi audio tracks at all. Interestingly, you can actually see the head switching point on the picture if you capture a full frame like I have. It's the moving dot with the wavy lines that follow it at the bottom of the picture. This dot is simply video noise that lasts as long as the machine takes to switch from one head to the other. Here's the switch point adjustment of the calibration section of the service manual. Here where this flips in polarity right here, this is the vertical sync begin. You have half lines here and full lines here. The switch point on this machine is set up pretty wrong, in all fairness. Here's the polarity shift for VSync. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5. Thereabouts. There we go. And that's the head switching point adjustment done. As I mentioned earlier, we have to replace some of the capacitors with higher voltage equivalents, because with these increased voltages, you're running 32-year-old capacitors at the rated voltage. That's a really bad idea. I went to Frankfurt today and got some capacitors to recap this power supply. It really has become a pharmacy. Look at this, you pay for a 1000 microfarad cap, you pay €1.26 a piece. Some really nice Panasonics in here, some Yagios because they didn't have anything else in stock. Everything here is rated 105 degrees. Let's take apart this power supply and see what we can do. Okay, so the capacity measures pretty okay and the ESR as well. But I believe we caught it just in the nick of time because A, it smelled really bad while desoldering it, and B, you can ignore everything around the capacitor, that's just the glue. But the leg of this capacitor already has some discoloration around it, so I think it was just starting to leak the electrolyte. And another one, pretty crusty. What are the chances that this one's gonna test good, do you think? Yeah, that's pretty toast. Completely and utterly toasted. Here's the replacements. From Panasonic, of course. High quality, low ESR, 105 degree capacitors. Yep, that cap was definitely completely shot. Look at that. I need to clean that up before I put a new cap in there. So due to the crustiness of the capacitors in this power supply, I just decided to recap it completely. Right, so I recapped the power supply and I already gave it a bit of a test here. It does actually still work, nothing blew up, so that's pretty good. And it should enjoy a nice long life now here at my place. And you can see all the drive functions still work, they work beautifully. So now it's time for the fun part of the video, testing the unit and showing off what it can do. First of all, let's begin with VHS hi-fi performance. The following pieces of audio are recorded on standard VHS in long play mode, and you will notice the crystal clear audio quality that this unit delivers. And of course with a small selection of my favorite tunes from the 80s. I guess for now it's time to put it back together. And we're done. Let's verify that it still does something. There we go. Nice vibrant VFD display. And it turns on just fine. Actually, there's one thing I haven't tested yet, and that's the remote control. See, does that do anything? Hey, would you look at that? I have no idea what kind of extra features these things are supposed to have. Also, this needs a bit of a cleanup. Let's see if we can change the channel. We can! How wonderful! We can also control the TB, but I don't have a JVC TV, obviously. There we go, we're finished. I consider this project done now, and I'm sure this unit will live a long and healthy life with me. Thank you so much for your patience. If there's any comments you have or any criticism about what I showed or said, please let me know in the comments. Of course, this also applies if you have technical questions about this unit or any other one you have. I hope I'll see you next time when I take a look at another piece of interesting vintage gear.